But first, hubris, atis, nemesis, thesis. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, may boast of his Italian heritage. It's a shame he isn't Greek. Because this week, Anthony Albanese set in train the events which will inevitably, according to the ancient universal laws of the Greek Empire, lead to his humiliation and destruction at the next election. I'm not an especially religious person or even superstitious, but if it comes to betting on the Greek gods of Olympus versus the ALP election machine of Sussex Street, I'll bet on the Greek gods every time. You may remember that after his unexpected landslide victory a year ago, which, by the way, Peter Dutton's coalition were expected to win and would have easily won had they displayed even an ounce of those qualities much prized by the ancient gods, courage and determination, more than one commentator has pointed out that with such a massive victory, the only thing that could prevent a third Albanese term would be his own hubris. Indeed, even in the run-up to that election, Albanese was already warning his troops of Labour's legendary weakness, hubris. After the election, the morning after, quarterbacks, that lot, were all saying Albanese was now easily headed for a third term, so long as he avoided any hubris in victory. And even the Labour-loving Sydney Morning Herald was reporting only last October that although, quote, the Albanese government is way short of absolute power, a growing culture of secrecy hints at a creeping hubris, further tainted this week by a taste for schoolboy bullying. So, what is hubris? Here I'm going to quote at length from an excellent blog piece on GreeceHighDefinition.com called Hubris, Atis, Nemesis, Thesis, an ancient universal law, which was sent to me by my friend Boyd about hubris and what it means. What is fascinating is that you can see how easily and readily it applies to Anthony Albanese and the entire Albanese government. Quote, in the worldview of the ancient Greeks, hubris referred to an extreme overestimation of one's power, abilities, or status. Those guilty of hubris displayed reckless arrogance, often challenging the gods or challenging the laws of the state or the moral code of society. Their actions were seen as insulting to both human and divine order, thus inviting divine retribution. End of quote. Hubris isn't just any form of arrogance. It's behaviour so excessive that it attempts to transcend mortal limits. A person committing hubris believes they can act without consequence.
Every government eventually reaches a moment where the political capital it owns starts running into the limits of what voters will accept. Right now, a growing number of commentators and analysts are asking whether the Albanese government is approaching that moment, and the polling data makes for interesting reading. A Roy Morgan Snap poll taken immediately after the 2026 federal budget found that 59% of Australians disapprove of the job Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is doing. That is a majority. And it tracks across genders, age groups, and states, with Tasmania being the sole exception. That is the kind of number that commands attention in any political environment, let alone one where the next election is already on the horizon. So what is driving it? A couple of threads are worth pulling on. The budget triggered a notable political moment when Albanese was pressed on changes to capital gains tax and negative gearing, policies he explicitly ruled out during the 2025 election campaign, reportedly telling reporters yes, for the 50th time, when asked if he was ruling them out. Now that the government has moved on those very settings, the opposition has made credibility questions central to their messaging, and those questions are landing with at least some voters. The broader polling picture is more nuanced. On a two-party preferred basis, the contest between Labour and One Nation is sitting at roughly 51-49, which analysts describe as too close to call and pointing toward a potentially hung parliament. That is a significant tightening from where Labour stood earlier in the term. At the same time, Labour still holds a clearer lead over the traditional coalition, sitting at around 54 to 45 on two-party preferred. So the picture depends heavily on how preferences flow. The historical lesson that political analysts keep returning to is a straightforward one. Governments with commanding majorities face a particular temptation to overreach, and voters have a long memory when they feel their expectations have not been met. Whether the Albanese government is managing that balance well is a question that will be answered at the next election, not by commentators, and not by polls taken today. That is your federal analysis breakdown. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is the government spending its political capital wisely, or is the pressure building faster than the numbers suggest? Subscribe for sharp daily analysis, and we will see you in the next one.